Imagine a nation divided, with ordinary citizens rising up to challenge what they perceive as unchecked authority in the highest office. President Donald Trump's policies on immigration and the deployment of troops in U.S. cities sparking waves of outrage. This Saturday, activists from coast to coast are set to unleash the second wave of No Kings demonstrations, a grassroots movement crying out against perceived abuses of power. But here's where it gets controversial. Are these gatherings a noble stand for democracy, or are they veiled attacks on the very fabric of America? As we dive into the details, you'll see why this event has ignited passions on both sides, drawing in millions and fueling debates that could shape our nation's future. And this is the part most people miss: how these protests echo historical fights for freedom, reminding us that in a democracy, peaceful dissent is not just a right, it's a cornerstone of progress. Let's break it down step by step to make sense of it all, even if you're new to political rallies. First off, what exactly are these No Kings protests? Think of them as a nationwide pushback, scheduled for October 18, building on the thousands who turned out in mid-June for similar events, as covered in this ABC News report. https://abcnews.go.com/politics/Kings Day protests U.S. counter Trump's military parade story, ID 122813898. This time around, a diverse alliance including heavy hitters like the American Civil Liberties Union, ACLU, Indivisible, and 50501, among others. Check out the full partner list at https://www.nokings.org. Partners is orchestrating over 2,600 gatherings across the U.S. Picture major hubs like New York City, the nation's capital Washington, D.C., Chicago, and Los Angeles, buzzing with activity, with organizers estimating millions in attendance. For more info, visit https://www.nokings.org. These aren't corporate-sponsored spectacles. They're driven by everyday folks and volunteers. As Deirdre Schiffling, the ACLU's chief political and advocacy officer, explained to ABC News, while specifics on funding aren't publicly detailed yet, and the network has deliberately stayed loose and decentralized, some allies are going all out. Take Home of the Brave, a political group that announced on Monday they'd splash out $1 million on ads in local and national papers to amplify the buzz. And to add star power, celebrities such as Jane Fonda, Kerry Washington, John Legend, Alan Cumming, and John Leguizamo are slated to join, per a fundraising email from the Progressive Change Campaign Committee. Their message: we'll take to the streets for immigrant families facing threats, voters being muzzled, communities harassed by aggressive policing, families on the brink of losing health care, and anyone whose rights are under siege by this administration's harshness, the email declared. To put this in perspective for beginners, these rallies are like modern-day town halls on steroids, where people exercise their First Amendment rights to assemble and speak freely. A tradition dating back to the Founding Fathers, who feared kings and tyrants and designed the Constitution to empower the people instead. Ahead of Saturday's events, law enforcement is ramping up vigilance, scanning social media and online chatter, collaborating with local planners and potential counter-demonstrators to gauge the atmosphere. This heightened awareness isn't surprising, given ongoing worries about large public events, particularly those with political undertones. It's a reminder of how protests, while vital for change, can sometimes escalate if not managed carefully. Think peaceful marches turning into flashpoints, as we've seen in history from the civil rights movement to recent climate strikes. Now, let's turn to the other side of the coin. What are Republicans saying about all this? Critics on the right are fiercely criticizing the protests, arguing they're a primary reason Democrats are dragging their feet on ending the federal government shutdown. Senate Majority Leader John Thune claimed on Wednesday that Democrats are holding out until after the No Kings rallies to appease their extreme left supporters. The reality is, what Democrats truly desire is something Republicans can't provide: endorsement from their radical base, Thune remarked. Even more heatedly, GOP leaders are labeling these as Hate America gatherings, painting them as assaults on the nation's core principles. I urge you to tune in. We're calling it the Hate America Rally on Saturday, House Speaker Mike Johnson told reporters on Wednesday. Watch reappears, I wager you'll spot Hamas sympathizers, Antifa elements, and full-blown Marxists exposing themselves. The folks who reject standing up for this republic's bedrock truths. Notably, Johnson offered no evidence for these allegations about Hamas supporters or Antifa types. Protest leaders stress they can't police outsiders and are committed to keeping things civil and violence-free. For context, this kind of rhetoric isn't new. It's reminiscent of how some politicians have historically tried to discredit movements by associating them with extremists. But it raises questions about whether it's fair or just fear-mongering. But here's where it gets controversial. Could these protests genuinely threaten national unity, or are Republicans overreacting to protect their agenda? And this is the part most people miss. The shutdown itself is a symptom of deeper divides. Yet pointing fingers at protests might distract from real solutions like budget negotiations. Adding fuel to the fire, former President Trump himself weighed in during a taped Fox News interview with Maria Bartiromo on Thursday, dismissing the king label. "They're accusing me of being a king. I'm not a king," he stated plainly. Meanwhile, some state officials are beefing up security measures, which rally backers argue could be tactics to intimidate participants. Texas Governor Greg Abbott, a Republican, posted on X, formerly Twitter, on Thursday. Link: https://Greg Abbott status 197888794442421, that he'd instructed the Department of Public Safety and National Guard to bolster forces in Austin. Texas won't permit disorder. Anyone vandalizing property or engaging in violence will face immediate arrest, Abbott warned. In a sharp rejoinder, State Representative Jean Wu, head of the State House Democrats, tweeted back, link https://x.com/TexasDemocrats/198891737. Deploying armed troops to crush peaceful demonstrations is the hallmark of monarchs and despots, and Greg Abbott has just shown he's cut from that cloth. This back and forth highlights how actions meant for safety can be spun as suppression, sparking debates on free speech versus public order. So, how are the protest organizers firing back at these Republican accusations? They're flipping the script, insisting that GOP leaders are the real culprits behind the shutdown, and that avoiding the phrase "no kings" is revealing. It's quite revealing that he dedicated a whole week branding this a Hate America rally, attacking this coalition and citizens everywhere, yet refuses to utter the protest's name, said Leah Greenberg, Indivisible's co-executive director, during a Thursday press call. Because uttering "no kings" dismantles their whole case. There's nothing more patriotic than declaring we have no kings and peacefully exercising our protest rights, she added. When pressed on whether Republican jabs might deter attendance, organizers predict the opposite. If anything, it could boost numbers, Schiffling noted. I believe folks can see through these desperate distractions from these Republican lawmakers and the Trump administration's inability to deliver what most Americans expect from their government. Ezra Levin, Indivisible's other co-executive director, shared with ABC News that while he appreciates the extra attention, he views it as an effort to curb Americans' First Amendment freedoms. Republicans and Trump recognize that the biggest nonviolent protest in recent U.S. history is uniting on Saturday to resist authoritarian excesses by this administration and its congressional allies. So they're scrambling to undermine it, he explained. To illustrate, think of how past movements like the Women's Suffrage Parade or March on Washington faced similar smears but ultimately advanced equality, showing that controversy often precedes progress. In wrapping this up, the No Kings rallies stand as a testament to the power of collective voices in a democracy. Yet they also expose raw divisions that could polarize us further. Do you believe these protests embody the spirit of America, fighting against perceived overreach, or do they risk undermining national unity by amplifying division? Is branding them Hate America a valid critique or a deflection tactic? And what if the real controversy lies in how we balance free expression with security? Could these events inspire positive change, or do they hint at deeper societal fractures? I'd love to hear your take. Agree or disagree? Share in the comments below, and let's discuss. ABC News's Josh Margolin contributed to this report.